Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar event. This is Josh. I'm going to be your presenter today. We're here to talk about uh, calculating payroll using direct deposit in our new Church Windows version 24 installation. We're kind of picking this up from the standpoint of we've already set up our direct deposit. We've sent the EFT pre-notify file to the bank, as a test run. They've come back to us stating that the EFT file is set up correctly, the NACHA compliant file, and we're ready to begin paying our employees using direct deposit, okay? And so that's what we're going to walk through today, is how do we pay our employees using the direct deposit function. And frankly, folks, it's not really that terribly removed or different from the way that the old payroll did it, okay? It's a little different, but not much. It does the same thing, all right? And one of the reasons why I do this the way that I'm doing it is because I like to show folks that it's not all or nothing. You don't have to have everybody being paid by direct deposit or everybody receiving checks. You can do a combination of both. And our data, we're going to be showing you how you can do EFT direct deposit file creation, generation for folks that are direct deposit, and then print checks for everybody else, okay, or for the rest. All right. So the assumption is this is now set up, and let's just go in and make sure of that. I want to make sure that I've got my folks here that I've got. So Larry is here. I want to go to direct deposit. Aha. It is not set up for Larry. We've got to go through and we've got to make sure that these folks are set up and enabled for this. I did this, folks, when I was working with some data for somebody, so I kind of changed this. So I've got to make sure. There we are, another one. This is all good now. We've got employees now have direct deposit set up. Okay, we've got it here and it's enabled with accounting and routing number information. All right, so now that that's done, we can now go to payroll and calculate payroll. So in this case, our pay date or settlement date is going to be the 15th of March. Our pay period ended or started is going to be February 26th, and our pay period ended will be March 10th. We're going to go to next. We're going to choose specific. I'm not going to do these test employees that I had set up before. I'm going to leave all of my other folks here. Again, I have some employees that are direct deposit, some that are receiving checks, okay? So again, because I want you to see how the process can be done where you have both, okay? Because that's what many of you have. Not everybody opts for direct deposit, all right? So this software supports that scenario nicely. So now that we've got our employees selected, we're going to go to next, and we're going to say right here, we're going to click on Jimmy, and we're going to say, all right, this last pay period, we're doing a quick edit here. He worked 40 hours, not 45, and we're going to just kind of click on everybody, and sure enough, everybody's got their pay set up exactly the way that we're wanting, okay? So then we're going to, as always, go to next. As I always recommend everybody does, click the Browse Payments button here. Examine the net pay. Make sure the net pay is what you're expecting for your employees. This doesn't matter whether they're receiving checks or direct deposit, folks. If you check this window and it's wrong, you have the opportunity to fix it before you can actually post it. Otherwise, once it's posted, the only way you can fix it is to go back and void it and redo it again for that employee or employees, as the case may be, okay? So as far as I'm aware, everything here looks good. We're going to click OK. And on our posting selections window, definitely got to post to payroll, but we have to check this box to the left that says create EFT transaction file. All right. So we're going to check that. We're also going to transfer it to accounting, and we're going to print checks and assign check numbers for our employees who are receiving checks and are not direct deposit. I like to kind of introduce this now is that the creation or the printing of the EFT stubs themselves is different from the print checks assign check numbers. That's a really important thing to sort of understand is when you're doing print checks assign check numbers, those are just computer checks or checks. Those are not direct deposit stubs, okay? if we wish to print the reports, we can certainly check that, all right? But for the purpose of our webinar, I'm not going to check that today, all right? If we were to check that, all right, we'll check it. I'll show you what we can do on it. So we check it, we go to next. It now pops up and says, here are our 3 reports, our taxable earnings report, pay type earning details, and our pay period deductions report. Maybe I don't care about the pay type earnings. If I don't want that, I can just double click on it or use the arrows here between the columns and just take it off there. And I'm only saying that I want to see print these just 2 other reports without the pay type earnings report, okay? If you want to show the report options screen, you can check that box. Basically, the option screens for my taxable earnings and my pay period deductions reports. Again, we're not going to check that. And if you want to save these selections for these reports, you would simply check the Save as Default button. All right, so once we got those, we go to Next. It then opens up, it's opening up our report. Here's our pay taxable earnings. I would send that to my printer in the upper left to send it to my printer. Automatically opens up my pay period deductions report, again sending it to my printer, and then when I've printed that, closing out. And now this is our EFT recipients page. This is the one where we're telling the system we've got to check this box to the right here that says generate EFT. Okay, if we don't do that, don't check those boxes, it is not going to create the EFT file on the next page. Essentially, we're saying we don't want to pay these employees, all right? So if you are using the direct deposit file and transmitting it to the bank, make sure to keep that Generate EFT box checked, and then we're simply going next, okay? Now, this is where one of the changes occurred very differently from the old payroll software. And for those of you that aren't familiar with that, please bear with us while we kind of draw a comparison here for this. One of the big changes here was, yeah, okay, you could print the pay stubs kind of at this same spot in the old payroll. What you couldn't do was you couldn't create or save the file. Basically, copy the EFT file during the payroll calculation process. You had to wait till the payroll process was complete. Then you went to a different screen and copied the file, all right? So I like to tell folks, this is a time saver here, all right? So if we click on right here, we see file location. It says C users, VM user desktop, perfect. If not, I'm going to click the browse button to the right and I'm going to choose the location where I want to save the file, all right? But the desktop is fine in this case. So all I have to do is click the button that says Save File. And when I do that, it says the file named EFT 230315, my pay date and my year, _1.dat has been saved. All right. I know it's right there on the desktop. And when we're done with the payroll calculation, I'm going to show you where that file is. Okay. And also, once I click OK on that, while we're at this same window, we want to click the button here that says Print Pay Stubs. If I click on that now, we're going to choose Huntington Bank Checking. These are my direct deposit employees for March 15th. That's the asset. Click Next. Here's my EFT files. Again, a few more mouse clicks, but it works. We go to Next, and we have to click the button Print EFT Stubs right here. If I click on that, here are my stubs. All right. So now I can, says non-negotiable. This isn't a check. This is just, these are printed to plain paper. Then I send those to my printer in the upper left-hand corner. I grab them off the printer. I verify that they're correct. I close out of the preview. I've now got stubs now that I can distribute to my direct deposit employees. It says click here to save check numbers. We're not actually at print checks yet. We're coming to that. Next, and it says the following stubs were printed for Huntington Bank Checking 315. Perfect. I've got those stubs. Okay. So now I've saved my file and I've printed my stubs. I'm ready to go to Next. Here I'm now at my check printing screen for my rest of my employees who are not direct deposit, and I can follow the normal procedures that I would for printing my checks for my employees. Not direct deposit, folks. We're going to move through this fairly quickly, folks. So same thing, I go to Next. I must choose my check layout, and click the Print Checks button to open up the preview of my checks. With check stock in my printer, I click Print in the upper left. I wait until I've grabbed the printed checks off the printer and determined and verified that they're presentable. Okay? Same controls we had in the old payroll software, because when I get to the next window, it asks me, should these be marked as printed? Did they print correctly, essentially? Okay? If they didn't, I would simply uncheck the ones that did not, and that's going to then put them back into the print queue for me to go back, assign new check numbers, and print checks for those folks. Okay? In this case, again, for the purposes of time and expediency, we're going to say that they did print correctly. We're going to say click Next and Finish. And it's now completed the payroll calculation process for folks. And it now then, we're going to go to Transfer to Accounting. And here we are, we're ready to transfer that payroll into accounting. Okay. Again, I'm not going to go ahead and go through that. It's the same process. Very simple to just simply go ahead and click Transfer to complete that processing and transfer that into our accounting module. But I did want to verify, we've got about 5 minutes left here, folks. I want to talk about a couple of other things about direct deposit, voiding notably. First of all, one of the things about this is, the new payroll is, you can create multiple EFT or direct deposit files for the same date. The old payroll would not permit that. So if you have to, say, direct deposit files that need to be transferred, say, for preschool and one for church or daycare and church, and you've got one set that's going to be posted to the preschool checking account, another one that's going to go to the church's checking account, you can create multiple EFT files for the same day. Okay? So that's really important to understand. That is a step forward from the old software. But I wanted to verify for you that now when we close or minimize payroll here back to our desktop, right here in the upper left, I'm going to pull it out here in the middle, is my file EFT 2023 or 230315 _1. That's the file now that I would upload to my bank, and then those folks would be paid on March 15th. I mean, that's hypothetical, folks. Of course, we're nowhere near close to 315. But assuming I had given them the 2 or 3 days lead time, calculated that from our pay date, the bank would accept this file, they would upload it, and then on March 15th, everybody would get paid at midnight or whatever time the bank pays them. So that just verifying that the file is in fact where I asked it to be saved. Okay. Voiding pay EFT pays, absolutely, like any other payroll, they can be voided. You simply have to go up to here, direct deposit EFT in the upper left here. We see that way up here. Hopefully see my kind of cursor bouncing up and down there. Direct deposit EFT, and then just below that to the right, void EFT pays, void EFT right up here. And then when we click on that, I have training data, folks, set up for future pay dates, but if I can pick any of them here, okay, is when I click right here, say check the box next to 315 and check that, notice it checks both Larry and Jerry in under 315 only. I simply go to the void button here in the upper right corner and it voids that EFT pay. All right. And it will ask also, of course, if I do that, if I want to reverse the accounting transactions that are associated with that. Thing about that, folks, is if you're voiding the pay, it would be unlikely that you would want to not reverse the accounting transactions associated with that. All right. So just keep in mind when you're prompted to void. So let's go ahead and we can do that. Highlight that, click void. It says, are you sure you want to void the EFTs? We click yes. Oh, I didn't transfer it. I'm so sorry, folks. My head's kind of a little lost here today. So if it did, it would pop up and populate with that. So let's choose another one. Sorry, that was my fault. So if I choose, say here, April 30th, I know I transferred this. Click void. Yes, here it is. The following pays have already been transferred to accounting for Larry and Jerry. Reverse the accounting transactions. We would click yes. It's now reaching over all the way into accounting. It's not only removed clearly April 30th here as well, but it's reversed those accounting transactions at the same time. Okay, so just kind of in a quick, 18-minute, 17-minute event here, we've covered calculating the direct deposit payroll, saving the file, printing your stubs, and transferring that into accounting, and included voiding the EFT pays as well. If I did need to void the other paychecks that went along with that, folks, of course, I would have to go back up to payroll and void individual pay. So I have to go to 2 different places in order to void everyone that was paid, say, on March 15th, okay? So just be aware of that. Like, you can void them together or create them together. If you wish to void them, you do have to go to the 2 different void screens if you want to do that. All right, so that is where I am going to leave the event topic today.